hear people talk about this all the time, and I absolutely agree that the entrepreneur journey is the biggest self-development journey you could ever go on.
100%. It takes that flashlight and shines on anything, any cracks in the system. Think of a whole water system underneath the ground. If there's any cracks, if we work really hard in this area, it's going to be a crack in this area, like sales and ops. And so it's going to shine a light on and give you an opportunity to really get to know yourself better, right? To lean into those things where maybe that it's your opportunity to really shine.
Hi, I'm Erin Marcus, former corporate executive turned entrepreneur and founder and CEO of Conquer Your Business. Welcome to the Ready Yet podcast. We're excited to bring you more than 100 episodes of interviews and insights designed to help entrepreneurs get the financial and emotional freedom they need in order to build a business and a life they're proud of. Hello, and welcome to this episode of the Ready Yet podcast. We finally decided to just hit record because we could have gone on all day, but I'm very excited about today's guest, Jaime Rowe, not just because we figured out we have amazing people in common, which is always nice, but I absolutely love your topic because to me, it's the big, scary elephant in the corner that stops people from moving forward. And it so doesn't have to be. So I love people helping make those breakthroughs and show people what's possible and make it easy for everybody. So before we get all into that, why don't you tell everybody who you are and what you do?
Hi, Erin. I love that you talked about the elephant in the room because you have two elephants behind you.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, they fit like you're just symmetric.
It's almost like the OCD kicked in and I had to, yes. Totally.
Oh, that's great. Well, I am Jaime Rowe. I'm from Impact to Income. I'm a mindful sales coach. And sometimes we were like, why would you put mindful with the word sales? Because sales can come across as sleazy. And in the past too, we have, you look at Hollywood and how they show like from Matilda, what is it, Danny DeVito? And he's like the sleazy, fast moving car salesman, yes, right? And he's going to sell you a car and it's going to break down a block away, something like that. But I focus more on the ease of sales. And when you bring your authentic self to a conversation, it never feels like selling. It just feels like you're just having a conversation, which we were just talking about. We focus more on heart over hustle. No one wants to hustle when it comes down to it at the end of the day, and you really don't need to. And so I love helping entrepreneurs to get over the fear around sales. I myself really struggled with sales, and I'm happy to talk a little bit about that today because it was a very difficult journey that no one really needs to go through. And there's a lot of shortcuts and there's ways to bring your heart and bring a heart-centered perspective into sales.
Love it. Love it. I love the reframe. I think that's one of the number one things I end up doing with my clients is it's not that the action they're taking is good or bad. It's not that the action they're not taking is good or bad. It all hinges on how our own perception of what everything is dictates what we're willing to do.
Well, exactly. It is about the reframe. And that's what the majority of, any good sales coach is going to do is reframe that. It doesn't have to be sleazy. And when you think you're selling someone, which I have in air quotes, like an old school way of selling, that's what you bring to the table.
Yes.
But when you bring to the table mindfulness and selling, we're all human beings and coming from your heart. That is a very different feel. That's a different energy. That's a different way of how we speak together. And we're coming as a partnership does my product or service serve you? And if it doesn't serve you, then here's someone else that could help you, or maybe suggest this. I can't tell you how many times I've said, hey, listen, you're not ready to work with me, but here, I'll give you someone to work with first. Mm-hmm. Or, hey, let's spend some more time in this certain type of therapy. Then I want you to come back to me. Or you need help with marketing more than sales right now. So focus on that first or something or another. So I think that's important. Just being honest and like, how would you want to be treated? I think that's important too. Yeah.
Absolutely. And I think, like attracts like, and when you put your marketing out into the universe, the people who it resonates with that come to you, one of the things I find myself saying to my clients over and over and over again is the number one thing they're scared of in terms of sales is exactly like you mentioned, being that pushy, sleazy salesperson, when the truth of the matter is they can't be that because it's not who they are as people. So they're allowing something to stop them that's not even a possibility. One, because it isn't who they are, and two, because they're not actually good enough to pull it off. Right? I'm like,
tell them that, Erin.
oh, I totally tell them that. I totally tell them that because it actually alleviates the concern. Here's a really good news. You couldn't do it if you tried.
Well, that's hilarious. Second is that I think it's really beautiful when people start to be concerned
Yes.
that they could be pushy, because that means that they care.
Yes.
When you bring caring and kindness to a sales call, that in and of itself, you're right, they wouldn't have the capacity to be pushy and to offer something to someone they don't need. Those days are gone, and those types of salespeople aren't going to make it. Because now we have the internet, we can research everything now. We don't have to trust the salesman that comes to our door and tells us we have to buy these windows for our house or whatever the case. And that now we can be present to a more mindful way of selling, which is more about relationships and connection too.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I love how you brought marketing into it. To me, it just, your business is a system and it all goes together. And when you do marketing well, sales is so easy.
It is. So when you have your messaging kind of dialed in, and I think a really important part, I talk about a phrase I use: lead with impact.
Yes.
So know what your impact is and how you can serve someone. So when I was a pet photographer, I knew deep down when I saw 2 matching bulldogs, I was like, you have no idea what I can do for you. That's what I want to say in my mind when I was talking with them.
Right?
I would meet people at dog parks and hand out my business card for dogs that I thought were cute. I knew I could do good for them. Sorry, I'm a little discriminating, but I really love all dogs. But there's some dogs, like the beauty and the shape of a Weimaraner's body.
Yes.
Little Chihuahuas with their little triangle ears and their.
So, it's so true. You'll love this because I grew up with Great Danes. They were show dogs. And then when in, let's see, the late 90s, I had 3 Dobermans and 3 at a time, because that was a great idea. It was like a 3-ring circus. We came to it. My team had a conversation the other day. Nobody sets out to have 3 dogs. The third one always just finds a way to show up. Like, you can set out to have 2 dogs, but that third dog, when that happens in your life, right, that was not planned. So, but one of those Dobermans in particular, as soon as he put on his outside collar, he stood up as a completely different animal. Like, he knew it. And that's what show dogs were like. They'd be lunatics, but they got in that ring, and certain animals just have that something about them, right?
They know, especially, I agree. And yes, the third dogs, they just kind of slide into the family. I had 3 corgis I was photographing.
Oh my God.
And corgis have very big personalities. I understand why Queen Elizabeth loved them so much. And they know they have the little fluffer butts, that cute little fluffer butt. And so 2 of the dogs were just playing, the multicolor one, and one was a fawn one. But the main fawn one had the beautiful black eyeliner around its eyes and knew its fluffy butt and would run away and then turn around and look at me.
Over the shoulder.
Hold,
like a Jason Momoa over the shoulder in Aquaman type of.
Yes. 100%. So dogs know. Some dogs are very good at we're talking about dogs.
How do we get this? Well, so here's the thing, because it all relates. It all relates. It's about putting your best foot forward, right?
Well, and knowing what you have to offer.
Right. That dog knew what she had to offer.
Yes. And I know when I was a distributor and I was selling CBD, and I specifically focused on, hey, if you have clients that have dogs that have seizures, that have cancer, tumors, or other ailments, itching, those types of things, like, it can change a dog's life, an owner's life. And I knew that impact. So when I would walk into a pet store and they didn't have CBD, I was like, I would love to just sit and talk to you about what your clients are coming in with and what they need help with, and see if this could help you or not. And it was just, it came from a very loving, authentic place to see. And if I couldn't serve them, that was fine too. And that's how I trained all my sales reps nationwide too.
And one of the things I noticed as I'm listening to you say that is, especially with service-based entrepreneurs, when the service is themselves, it's so much harder for people to break through the blocks. When we're selling a third party's XYZ, and I come out of corporate sales, and I remember when I was having challenges in my business way back when I started, I met a woman and I told her, I don't understand why I'm having a little bit of a problem with this. My parting gift was like $1 million deal in corporate. And she said to me the most brutally horrible truth bomb. How come you could do it for someone else and not for yourself? How come you can sell something for someone else and not yourself? And so I do think I'd love to get your input on, when you are the service, why is that so much harder to get past your blocks than when you're selling either a third-party product or even a third-party service?
That's a great question. I hear that all the time, especially when I work with women and they're selling a service, which is themselves. And what it comes down to really taking a flashlight and shining in on, do you feel that you are worthy? And I know that sounds really kind of corny and cheesy, but it comes like an arrow right to the heart. Like, are you ready to do this or not?
Yep.
And so it comes to this existential crisis: if I'm worthy enough in life, not is this product or this service worthy enough that I'm offering, but am I worthy enough? And so it's a very interesting place, and it cracks open something that's already been dormant in there. That's why I'm a firm believer of that. You can heal through business because you're given opportunities that you normally wouldn't in a corporate environment.
Absolutely.
To really be head on to these difficult things that we may have pushed down like a beach ball into the water as hard as we can. And then when we become an entrepreneur, that beach ball goes up in the air
and explodes.
Yeah, it explodes. And you're like, what do I do with this?
Totally. And we always hear people talk about this all the time. And I absolutely agree that the entrepreneur journey is the biggest self-development journey you could ever go on.
100%. It takes that flashlight and shines on anything, any cracks in the system. Think of a whole water system underneath the ground. If there's any cracks, if we work really hard in this area, it's going to be a crack in this area, like sales and ops. And so it's going to shine a light on and give you an opportunity to really get to know yourself better, right? To lean into those things where maybe that it's your opportunity to really shine. And so I know when I've owned 6 businesses. I bought and sold a business. I took one business from 0 to $1 million in about 26 months. I've had great failures. Great successes too. But one of my biggest pieces in some of those failures, those first businesses, is I did not feel worthy enough to sell my photography, I was doing sales consulting. I never sold. I just had conversations with people and coffees, and I just thought this will eventually lead to business. No intention, no direction, no focus. Hey, guess what? You get a lot of coffee, super doesn't work.
Right? Everybody loves you.
Everyone loved me.
Nobody has any money. Yeah.
Right. Bingo. And so I was spinning my wheels forever. And I'm like, you know what? I'm a smart person. I can figure this out. And it went through a whole therapy, coaching, speaking courses, speaking coaches, sales coaches, emotional intelligence, books, podcasts, you name it, of me going through like, I can figure this out. And I found my own way. And one of the big pieces was bringing my feminine in. It's the masculine. We all know it. You and I were both talking about this. Like when you're in corporate and you're in business, like I knew my SMART goals, my KPIs, I hit everything. I was top 5, everything, like whatever the case, like.
Well, the answer is always get more intense.
Yeah.
Right.
And even if you burn out, keep pushing through, crush it, kill it. That's all I heard. Crush it, kill it. Just push through that pain. Sorry.
It's the language I was with a client. I love that you say this because I was with a client yesterday, and you'll probably relate to this with the photography background. And we were talking about language, and language is important. And she's a photographer, and she hates how violent photography. It never occurred to me. We do a photo shoot. It's a headshot. I'm going to capture your image. She's like, I don't have a net. And I never realized how underlying aggressive.
Yeah, I'm going to shoot your dog.
Right? It's
Right?
terrible.
Tell her, please come up with new words and let me know,
She
because I
has
share it
great
with all
words.
my photography friends.
She's an amazing creative. I will connect you because totally like where I'm like, oh my gosh, when you really put them all together like that, you can see the trend
Yes.
of how aggressive the language is.
And sales is very aggressive too. Crush your sales
The
goals.
hit list, that's the one that always got me.
Yeah.
The
Well,
client hit, the hit list.
the hit list? Oh my gosh.
Back in the day, right? What's my hit list? What's my target list? Like, I wouldn't want to know that I was on someone's hit list of who they wanted to close, right? No one wants to.
Yeah, always be closing, right? The ABCs of closing. Put that coffee down, that movie, Glengarry Ross.
Yeah.
So interesting. And I think when I released that sandbox of how to do sales.
Yeah.
Because sandbox is not designed, that type of sandbox really isn't designed. It doesn't even serve the people who are in it. The burnout in sales, the turnover in sales, like it doesn't even serve them. And so I just created a different sales box or sandbox, not sales box, a different sandbox.
You can have that too.
And I brought more of the feminine. Like before I went on this call right here, I did a quick little meditation just to drop in and make sure I was really grounded. You can call it prayer, whatever you want to call it. And just sit in the space so that I can be mindful in this conversation. So I can be present, so I can be authentic, and I can be my real self. And doing small things that bring in like pleasure and joy into a sales call. Having a piece of chocolate after you do a really good job on a sales call, if that's a reward, how to set up rewards. Really having opportunities to have some fun with this. We're so serious about sales sometimes. So serious that it takes away from the joy of the conversation with
the conversation
person.
and the connecting. Love what you're learning here and interested in more? Check out conqueryourbusiness.com to get immediate access to all sorts of additional resources and stay updated on our upcoming training events. It's really interesting to hear what you have created as your rituals. I did mine a little differently, but now as you're talking, I can hear what the alignment is. My whole thing is focus on the other person, right? Like, and I tell this story because it happened by accident, the way I got much better at sales once it was for me. Speaking of dogs, so I talk to my dogs and the cat, like full conversations. They talk back. Some people understand it. Some people don't. I understand it. And I was leaving one day. I had a full schedule of consultations in a business I owned at the time where those consultations were in people's homes. And when I went to leave, I looked at the dog and I said, don't worry, I'll be back. I have to go help some people today. I don't know why it came out of my mouth that way. Changed everything. Changed everything. Because now when I go into these conversations, what I go through mentally is how excited I am to talk to that person, how curious I am to find out about them and what they're doing. It is nothing to do with the outcome of the conversation, except for I know I can help them in some way.
Yes. And selling is serving. Yeah. And sometimes I use an analogy, this helps people, is selling is kind of like offering a suggestion. So if you were coming into town, Erin, and you're like, hey, I want to go out to a great restaurant. I'm like, okay, define great for me. And I start asking questions. I get curious. I'm like, okay, do you like seafood? And you're like, no, don't eat seafood in Denver, by the way, just eat it on the coast. Anyway,
you're near the sea.
Yeah, by the sea is the best place for seafood. People come to Denver and they're like, oh, I want to have shrimp and I'm like, you're in the wrong place.
You went way too high in elevation for that. Yes.
Right. And so I'd ask you what type of food you like. Do you want it downtown? Do you want easy parking? Do you have any allergies? Like I'd start being curious because I really want to make a good recommendation. I want you to have a wonderful evening. So asking all these questions and okay, I would suggest X, Y, and Z. It's downtown. They have free parking. It's a really beautiful X, Y, and Z type of food that you say you would like. And then makes me feel warm and fuzzy inside because I know you're going to have a great evening. And then you feel good about it because I ask questions and I also what you ask for what you wanted, which is very important. Know what you want, ask for what you want. Don't be afraid to ask for what you want. And then you have a beautiful dinner. It's kind of like that.
Right. And it doesn't have to be harder than that.
So true.
The things
we
that
make it harder.
We
This
make
is
it
what
so much harder.
I would ask people this is what story, I do this to my clients, what story are you telling to yourself about sales?
Right.
Is it really, really hard to sell? Is it, sales is sleazy? Like I would almost do like a stream of consciousness journaling, just like, what does sales mean to me? What stories am I telling about myself? And just brain dump, because we want to bring that unconscious feelings to the conscious. So then we can decide what we're going to do with them. And so I think that if someone was in corporate, I mean, yes, they could handle this, but right? Because listen, when it comes down to an entrepreneur, is you are the cook, you're the sheriff, you're the front desk, you're doing the laundry, like you're doing everything in a household. So you've got to make it work and put food on the table. So guess what? You need to figure this out.
You have to figure this out. It's such the key to everything, because so I come from a place of business strategy and marketing is where I really start with people, but we do a lot of sales training because if I can get you past your fear of being visible, it won't matter if you can't close a sale.
Yeah.
If you cannot turn your community into clients, it won't matter. That's where we go from being a professional friend to being a business owner.
Yeah, that's so true. And I think too, it is about practice. It's about thoughtful practice. And I hate to say it's a numbers game, but I mean, the more people you talk to, the more practice you get, the more natural your conversation is.
And you don't have to say numbers game as if you're reducing someone to a number.
Correct.
It's more about, if you just look at any book about professional athletes, how many times do you have to do something until you get good at it?
Yeah, I mean, Malcolm Gladwell's the 10,000 hours to be a master. We don't need to be a master.
No, just got to get out of
we
our own
just-
way a little.
Yeah, but try and have some fun with it. I mean, I like to say, I tell my clients, if you have someone come in, you've never met them, they came into your website as a lead, do a little research on them. Light stalking,
Light stalking. Very light stalking.
Very, very light stalking. Because to me, excuse me, human beings are so fascinating to me.
I agree.
I love people. I mean, I think they're so interesting. So when I start to look at their LinkedIn, their Facebook, their Instagram, just search their name on the web, I see their face and I start to connect with them and wonder what they're like and wonder what they were like as kids and what they're really looking for and where's their pain and am I able to help them? And I start building this relationship before I even had a conversation with them. And I get really curious and the conversation is so much fun. And I ask a really silly question in every sales call and not everyone, I would say 90% of the people start to laugh and then they give me an answer. And I can even share it if people want to hear. This is a great question.
It'd be awesome. Let's hear it.
You want to know?
Let's hear
it. So before preface here are you familiar with DISC profiles?
Oh yeah.
Okay. So this is related to DISC. I want to know what their DISC is, but I want to hear it from them. So I asked, and a mentor shared this to me probably 25 years ago. I asked them the question. I said, listen, I'm going to ask you a question and just let me know the first thing that comes into your mind. And Erin, I want you to answer as if we're on a sales call. Okay, awesome. So Erin, I'm curious, if I gave you an elephant, what would you do with it?
Feed it.
Great. So that tells me a lot about you. That tells me is that you're a quick decision maker. You answered like that. Oh, some people sit and spin out and it's silence.
I'm just almost D off the charts.
Well, your answer was very S. You said feed it. The D was a quick response. And then the S was feed it, which is very nurturing and kind.
My DISC is way, way high D, goal driven, almost as high interpersonal, which is what keeps me from being a jerk. But by the way, under stress, that goes away. Just FYI. My steadiness goal is I'm like at a 40. I think it's a female enough, right? And then you'll love this for consistent. What's the C stand for? I forget. I call it conscientious. I call it processes. Out of 100 possible points, 7. And I will tell you, they are all for accounting after over a decade in a public financial services business. The only process I follow is accounting.
I love that so much. That's great. Yeah. And I think too, is once you get to know the system, and it can change every 6 months, but your core doesn't. And you probably took that.
And I laugh because the other thing that gets influence you is I said feed it because the TikTok algorithm knows I am only interested in baby goats, mini cows, and elephant sanctuaries. So when I do take my TikTok break, I am inundated with baby elephants. And you asked before we started about the elephants behind me. My life, this is one of the things I teach is how do we put what's important to you front and center for you? You don't have to wait to get involved in it. So one of my life goals is donate $1 million to wildlife rescue. I volunteered at wildlife rescue. I'm launching a foundation this year. It's not completely altruistic. I figure if I show up with a big check, they will let me play with the baby elephants.
That's your goal. That's great.
That's the goal. So the elephant is my reminder of my big why. And my little mantra is we have to be able to feed the baby elephants.
Well, I think that's an important point. Funny. Yes, I love that. And I'm a TikTok bird person. Listening to birds talk. I love crows.
Lots of birds and wildlife photography. And
yes, I love bird. That's all I watch on TikTok. That's wow. Now everyone knows everything. But I think it's important to know that big why too, of why you're doing this. So when it comes down at the end of the day, understand your impact, but also what's your bigger why you're selling this service. Is it so you can have a vacation for your family? Is it to, pay for your bills? Also, is it, why are you doing this service? If you're helping someone, like for one of the reasons, my big why is it's not to play. I would love to play with baby elephants. That makes me reevaluate a little bit here, but
maybe you should rethink why you're doing what you're doing. We could go. There's a lot in common here. We would have fun.
Yes. Well, is that if you look at the number of women that are in running companies, starting companies that are over 1 million, it's less than 2% of all the companies in the US. Okay. Yes. So my goal is to increase that number.
Love it.
So how can we spend more time with women, not just hitting the 1 million? Listen, your revenue number is vanity. Your profit is sanity.
Oh, yes. Yes. Okay.
And so I think it's important to not only have the revenue of the 1 million, but also profitability in there. And so that's what I teach with the sales piece to get people, because I only work with people that I believe in what they're doing and they're really good at what they do. It's just the selling part. It's a learned skill. Everyone can learn how to authentically and be mindful of selling. Absolutely. It's a learned skill. It's not I'm good at sales or not. That's another story people tell themselves, but yes.
Oh, yeah. But sales is one of the big differentiators between what you get to have and what you don't get to have.
Yes. And it is an indication of what you feel like you deserve. Yeah. I had a mentor tell me that a long time ago, and that hit home, kind of like you said, like, oh, right here.
Right.
So she said, it is a reflection of what you feel like you deserve. And I'm like, ouch.
Right. It's those brutal truths. Absolutely.
Yeah. It's some moments to just sit and reflect on that. I think reflection is important in sales too. I just came from a 3-day silent retreat, and I'd like to do more of them. And I think that it's an opportunity. If anyone has a chance to do it, it's not easy. It is difficult to sit in silence with 40 other people. But it's a game changer, especially when it comes to sales, because you're really getting to know yourself. The more you know yourself, the more you're open to learning about others and reflecting what's important for them, because it's important to you, and that you can even serve them in a greater capacity. So step 1 here is learn to know yourself. Who are you?
Absolutely. And I teach that with sales because if you don't know yourself, going back to our conversation about DISC, I know my tendencies and my defaults. So I'm able to say, okay, I have to pay special attention to how someone else is presenting so that I can meet them where they are, because sales is about them. Communicate the way they need in order to better understand all the things.
Yeah, for sure.
Your
Yeah.
first point, sales is of service. And if
Yeah.
it's of service, then it's not about me. It's about where are they? What do they need? How do they need to hear it in order to absorb it?
Yes. Meet them where they are. Meet
Absolutely.
them where they are. And not all, people come to me that are, I would say, not advanced, intermediate, but then there's some people where we're starting from the basics, which is super fun too, that foundational pieces where it's almost like you're kind of starting over with them and you're growing with them and playing with them and that kind of a new sandbox. So yeah, I love it. I love what I do.
So if people want to learn more and connect with you and your approach to sales, which I absolutely love, what is the best way for them to reach out, get a hold of you, find you?
Yep. So the best way to reach out is go to impact2incomeprogram.com. That's a long URL. I know that. So that's why it's going to be in the show notes.
Yes.
And then also Impact Income on Instagram. I'm also on LinkedIn, Jaime Rowe, ROWE. You can find me there. We do even a LinkedIn newsletter, which is quite funny. So please join in and have some fun with us.
Awesome. So great getting your approach, talking about dogs, birds, TikToks, DISC, all my favorite things. So this was awesome. Thank you for your time today.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate you. And I appreciate everyone listening today.